Right now, we need to improve our communication with so many different people, certainly with our husbands if you're married, because we are, most of us, with our husbands much more than we used to be, perhaps because of the stay-at-home orders during the pandemic. And so we are around each other more. There's more irritability going on because we're all a bit frustrated and stressed. And so there is a chance that our communication has gone awry. And perhaps you're feeling even more challenged in this area of communication right now. So this lesson is going to be super pivotal there. But also you might need better communication skills with your children right now, who are also around you 24/7, and you're like, I need a break. And maybe more or improved communication skills with your mother, who keeps inserting yourself in your life or whatever. Or here's another one. This is key for me. I'm preaching to myself right now, probably nobody else. But for me, I'm increasingly frustrated with some of the decisions that are being made by our government officials. Seems like arbitrarily this business can operate, but this business can't. It doesn't seem fair. And so then I get all anxious and upset, and I feel like just venting and letting people know what I think. Well, I probably could use these powerful Bible principles to guide my communication even with our government officials. So this is going to apply to all of us in some way. And you'll have to pardon the noise I have because I have trucks driving by my window apparently right now. Why they're driving by right now with these big old dump trucks, I don't know. But anyway, so if you hear a lot of noise, that's what that is. All right, it's time. Let's dive into our lesson on improving communication, whether it's in marriage, with your kids, with your mother, with government officials, whoever it is. How can we improve communication? And I want to start with this. Our communication improves when we are secure. For me, I become secure when I realize how much God loves me. Then I become more secure. And when I am secure, all of my communication improves. It's kind of interesting. You wouldn't think that there would be such a link between my security and my communication, but there's a huge link. When you remind yourself that you are God's beloved, it changes your communication, I think, in at least two powerful ways. First, when you're really super secure in who you are, the beloved daughter of the Most High King, you don't allow your husband, your boyfriend, your mother-in-law, anyone to treat you disrespectfully because you know how precious you are. And so you don't allow someone to walk all over you or verbally abuse you. So you carry yourself with that confidence. But also, when you know who you are, God's beloved, you have such deep peace and security in the Lord that the words flowing from your mouth are kind and gentle, instead of harsh and critical and disrespectful and self-focused, because you're already so secure. So, how do you know you are God's beloved? Well, because the Bible says so. Romans 9:25 says, "Her who is not beloved, I will call beloved." I love that little verse. I wonder how all our communication with your husband, with your children, with the government officials, with your mother, with your sister, with your dad, with your brother, how would all of this change if you and I were to remind ourselves every morning, I am the beloved child of the Most High King. Jesus died for me because he loved me so much. This is who I am. I am God's beloved. I wonder how all our communication would change if we just reminded ourselves of that one thing every day. But let's move on to some common problems with communication with our husbands or with the significant person in your life. And we're going to look at this mostly from our standpoint because we only have the power to change us. I know we're always wishing that our husbands would be listening to this. Maybe some men are listening to this on Facebook Live or YouTube, I don't know. But really we can only clean up our side of the street. But once again, and I always say this, if we clean up our side of the street, likely communication is going to improve overall with whoever we're talking to. First, let's go, before we get to, God's powerful Bible principles on how to communicate more effectively, let's first become aware of some common problems. And I have the top 10 common problems I've compiled. Top 10 common problems in terms of you effectively communicating with your husband or really with anyone. And the first is this: assumptions. Assumptions. Such as assuming what your husband really means or what he really thinks, even though he actually never said that. But you just know. I mean, I just know. I just assume all sorts of things. I assume that he knows what you need or want, and then you're frustrated that he doesn't do it. Assuming he understands what you're expecting him to do, even though you didn't make it totally clear. How many of us have been guilty of that? I mean, my example from just recent days is I said, man, this house needs to be vacuumed. Crickets. There's no vacuuming sound going on. I'm like, didn't I just say that the house needed to be vacuumed? Would you please vacuum the house? No, I did not say that. I just said, boy, this house sure needs vacuuming. See, a woman's way of communicating is so much different than a man. Most women, if we said that, another woman would go, oh, I should help with vacuuming. And a guy just heard that you said the house needs vacuuming. It's like, okay, we can't just make these leaps and bounds in terms of assumptions. We have to be more clear in our conversation, in our communication. Okay, another common problem. Number 2, mistakenly believing that men think like women, so they will pick up on your hints or what you really mean by your unclear communication. The other day, driving down the road, many of you know that we have this stay-at-home order currently in Washington State, so there aren't a lot of businesses open, and I've been hankering, honestly, for some French fries. That's one thing I just can't make at home. I don't have a deep fryer, and I was just like hankering for French fries. I haven't had French fries in like 6 weeks. I'm going to be going insane. And so I just said, as we're driving down the road, I just having a craving for French fries. And my husband said, yeah. And then he just drove right by all the multitude of fast food places that serve French fries. I'm thinking, didn't he understand that I meant stop there at the drive-thru, right? Didn't get it, because men and women think differently. Men don't really respond to hints nearly as well as women do. Number 3, common communication problem, allowing yourself to be disrespectful in your communication when you're frustrated or disappointed with your husband or with anyone. And then the end result often is that your husband shuts down emotionally. Maybe he retreats to the garage, or perhaps he reacts with really harsh words as a defense mechanism, right? I know that you guys probably never do these kind of things, but just in case 1 or 2 of you have fallen into this trap of kind of reacting with harsh words, being disrespectful in your communication, maybe you've said things like, why can't you ever? Or, I shouldn't have to tell you that. Or, I'm sure you have more important things to do, like that sarcastic tone. Or, you just don't get it. Or those nonverbal cues like, the exasperated sigh, the rolling of the eyes, right? Common communication problem. Common communication problem number 4, failing to communicate what you really want or need in the relationship because you're insecure or you hate the possibility, the idea of possible tension. And so you don't really bring up what you really need or want because you're afraid about the reaction that you might get, and you don't want any tension, right? You hate the idea of possible tension. Number 5, common communication problem, speaking impulsively before you've paused to think about how your words will impact your husband. I have to say that this is hard for me. I mean, I don't like conflict and I hate possible tension, but when I'm really aggravated, my first impulse is to say something like, I can't believe what a jerk you're being. That's probably not the best thing to say. Like, you can't rewind that, you can't take that back. It's out there, right? It's already done the damage. And when I say something like that, is that really going to accomplish my goal of perhaps my husband changing? No, he's just going to get super defensive. So again, huge common communication problem, speaking impulsively before you've really paused to think about how your words are going to impact that person. Number 6, being critical, so that most of your communication is a negative experience for your husband or that other person. Ooh, how is the balance of your conversation? Is most of it critical and complaining and negative? Who would want to communicate with you? Number 7, tuning out your husband or failing to really try to understand his perspective when he's talking to you. And this can be because we're focused on what we want to say, so we're not really even listening to what they want to say. Or for me, all of you really task-oriented people, often like I'm acting like I'm listening to my husband, but really I'm going through my to-do list in my brain at the same time. Anyone else do that? Number 8, common communication problem. During a disagreement, dramatically throwing up your hands in despair and ending the communication instead of calmly continuing the conversation and expecting to reach an agreement or compromise. Shouldn't that be the goal? That we don't get all dramatic and throw up our hands in defeat and despair and, I can't believe it. But instead that we calmly continue the conversation, expecting to reach an agreement or compromise. Number 9, common problem in communication, failing to have a sense of humor when communication derails. Oh man, if we could just all have a little bit of a sense of humor here. And this has been huge for us. Sometimes my husband is, irritating me or thought I communicated something, but he didn't seem to hear me. And I need to just laugh it off. Or as some of you have heard me say recently, my husband and I have been doing this thing that really just sort of causes the tension to just dissipate immediately. When my husband says something kind of snarky or snarly to me, or I end up saying something kind of snarky or snarly to him, one of us will come over to the other and go, bam! Because it's like the devil is sitting on our shoulder, just egging us on to say rude things or sarcastic things. And when we catch ourselves doing that, or each other doing that, we walk over and go, bam! To remind ourselves to knock the devil off our shoulder. And that seems to break the tension. Now, I'm not saying this is going to work for all of you, but that's a way of injecting just a little bit of humor into the situation when our communication derails. And then number 10, about my top 10 list of common communication problems, being self-righteous or condescending when speaking to our guys. It might sound something like this: I know you don't know how to communicate very well. How does that sound? Like, oh, you poor thing, you just don't get it, do you? Oh man, we do not want to sound like we are all that and they are just so inferior to us. That causes a lot of defensiveness, and now all of a sudden your communication is completely derailed. Okay, so those are the top 10 common problems, but what do we do about it? I want to give you 15 Bible-based principles that will help you communicate more effectively with your husband or with anyone. And I'm just going to walk through these. I have verses that go with each one of them, and I'll try to give you some examples of what these actually look like, right? But first of all, a woman with healthy, effective communication is peaceful and calm because she trusts Jesus to take care of her and those she loves. So she is peaceful and calm because of her relationship with Jesus and her trust in Jesus to take care of her, to watch over her children, to ultimately see good come about in every situation. Because she has such hope and trust and faith in Jesus, she's inwardly calm. Isaiah 26 verse 3, you keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. When we choose to put all of our trust in God, we can communicate more calmly and peacefully with anyone, including our husbands. Second, a woman who has healthy conversation, healthy communication, she is concise and simple. Concise and simple. Not using complicated, long explanations, but getting right to the point. Proverbs 10 verse 9. When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. That is a really instructive Bible verse right there. Did you catch that? When words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. So instead of getting into these long conversations about your feelings and this and that, most men would just like you to get to the point. Just put it simply and directly. Just get to the point. Number 3, a woman with healthy communication, effective communication, she is respectful with both verbal and nonverbal communication. Ephesians 5:33, the wife must respect her husband. So this means we're not rolling our eyes and going, all that kind of stuff. And we choose, it is a choice, ladies, to interact respectfully with our husbands or with anyone. Number 4, a woman with healthy, effective communication, she is gentle. She is gentle. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Some of you have had that happen in your homes recently, right? When you have that harsh word and all of a sudden everyone's starting to get angry with everyone else. By the way, most men are really uncomfortable with super big, huge emotions. So your husband can actually hear you better and be less defensive if you speak calmly and gently. Even if you're confronting him about something, he can probably receive that better if you have a calm, gentle voice. Doesn't mean that you can't be setting boundaries and drawing some firm boundaries, but if you can do it in a calm, direct, simple, straightforward, gentle way, most men can hear that better. Number 5, again, we're talking about powerful Bible principles that that lead to healthy, effective communication. A woman needs to be honest if there is a problem instead of stuffing her anger and doing a slow boil. I have been guilty of this for most of my life. I just have to be perfectly honest. This is probably my biggest one that I struggle with. But listen to what Ephesians 4:25 says. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor. This means, ladies, when you are really ticked off at your husband and you haven't quite let him know what it is yet because you're a conflict avoider and you're kind of inwardly seething and he says, "Are you okay?" And you say, "I'm fine." Are you really fine or are you lying? When God woke me up to that one day when he said, "You're lying, Debbie," I'm like, "Lying? I don't lie. I'm not a liar." Well, when I say, "I'm fine, there's nothing wrong," I'm lying if there is something wrong and I've just avoided bringing it up. Now, I'm not saying you need to bring it up that second. Maybe you need to process how you're going to bring this up, but to lie and say, "No, I'm fine," even though there's like an ice wall in front of you, and you're shutting your husband out, that's not okay. So again, this means you ask God to give you the courage to gently talk about your concerns and frustrations and what you need in the relationship. Okay, let's move on to number 6 here. A woman with healthy, effective communication, she is humble and doesn't act like her opinion is the only one that matters, the only opinion that counts. Philippians 2 verse 4, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interest of others. For some of us, we can be a bit bossy, always telling our husbands what to do. How emasculating for our husbands, right? When we're always telling them, "No, this is the right way. No, that's not. You're doing it the wrong way." I did that just today with my husband. I'm still learning, just along with everybody else. Number 7, a woman with healthy, effective communication, she is flexible. Not like bendy, but flexible in terms of like cheerfully working toward compromise on all issues, unless your husband is asking you to do something immoral or sinful, then you don't compromise on that. But otherwise, are you flexible, cheerfully working toward compromise when you have a little disagreement? 1 Corinthians 1:10 says, I appeal to you, brothers, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree, and that there be no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and the same judgment. So are you flexible, or does everything have to be done your way because, duh, you are right and everyone else is wrong? Just saying. Number 8, a woman with healthy, effective communication, she is patient and willing to give her husband time to process any major request she makes instead of pressuring him to agree with her right now. Agree with me right now. Proverbs 25:15, with patience a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue will break a bone. Patience. This will help you avoid a situation where your husband gets super defensive and it maybe erupts in anger because you're pressuring him to agree with you right now. When you're asking your husband to make a major change, or you really have a major request you're bringing to him, give him some space to process that before you pressure him into agreeing with you right now. Number 9. A woman with healthy, effective communication, she is an attentive listener and doesn't interrupt her husband until he's done talking. Someday, I will learn to do this. I don't know when that's going to happen because I am the biggest interrupter ever and I'm being convicted of this over and over again. Anybody else? Anybody else? James 1:19, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. We need to listen when our husbands speak, ladies. And I know sometimes it's hard because I think women's brains just click at a different, speed than men's or something. I don't know. But I feel like I can always finish my husband's sentences before he does. And so I just want to help him finish it quicker. Get to the point. Oh, so disrespectful. So I need to be an attentive listener, really listen, shut my mouth, let the other person finish talking, and then maybe we can have a discussion back and forth. Number 10, a woman with healthy, effective communication is careful to pause before reacting with words. Proverbs 21:23, whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. Is that not the truest thing? Right? This is huge. If you feel that like adrenaline spike because of something going on and you just want to blurt out something like, I can't believe you did that, you need to back away. Give yourself a timeout just for even a couple moments to let that adrenaline fade out. And while you're pausing and letting that adrenaline just, flood out of your system, that's when you need to consult the Lord and say, okay, before I react with words that I might regret that might not be actually super helpful in this situation, what do you want me to say, Lord? Help me to see this from the other person's perspective, which really leads me to the next point. Number 11, a woman with healthy, effective communication is always striving to understand and value her husband's perspective or the other person's perspective. Proverbs 18:2, fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions. Some of this is so convicting. Is anyone else convicted? This has made a huge difference for me. When my husband and I disagree, it really helps if I pause and I just ask the Lord, why is he thinking that way? What's really going on? Can you help me see underneath the surface? Because right now I just disagree and I think this is stupid or whatever. But Lord, help me to see this from your perspective, from his perspective. Help me to understand why he would be thinking that. And when I actually pause and do that, often immediately the Lord will give me an insight that is so helpful in that situation. Number 12, a woman with healthy, effective communication is patient for the right time to communicate important matters and make sure that she really has his full attention. Proverbs 14:29, whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly. The HALT acronym, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. This is not the time to bring up something super important with your husband. So if he's just walked through the door at the end of the day, not a time to spring on him like, okay, I just can't homeschool anymore, and we're gonna have to do this and this, and we're gonna send the kids to your mom's for 3 months right now, and he's like, blah, 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 this is way too. He needs time to just kind of like, chill out, maybe get something to eat, relax for a moment before you bring up really important communication. Number 13, a woman with healthy, effective communication is careful to avoid jumping to conclusions or reading between the lines. Luke 6:37, judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. The moment you think that he said something more than he actually said, you need to ask a question to clarify what you're assuming. You need to ask a clarifying question. Instead of just assuming and jumping to conclusions, you can ask, did you really mean this? I think you meant this. Is that what you're actually intending? And to clarify instead of just us assuming, well, that means he doesn't really even love our children, obviously. Since he said he doesn't want to help them with their homework, he doesn't even love them. That's what he's saying. No, probably not. But you need to ask him for clarification instead of making these rather crazy assumptions sometimes. Number 14, we're almost there, people. Number 14, a woman with healthy, effective communication, she is balanced in her communication so that he hears at least as many positive messages as negative ones. Yeah, at least as many positive messages as negative ones. Proverbs 16:24, gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Does your husband need some healing communication, some sweet communication instead of, you didn't do that, you drive it, why did you, right? If you don't strive for that balance, your husband is going to just run from you instead of wanting to be with you. And number 15, a woman with healthy, effective communication avoids emotionally charged complaints and criticisms when upset, and instead clearly states what she needs from her husband moving forward. So instead of it being a tremendously negative encounter where you're just telling him, I can't believe you did this, and why don't you do this? And instead of making it all negative and saying how upset you are and it's all emotionally charged, instead of that, you actually turn it into a more positive experience by saying, what I really need you to do is help for 30 minutes with the math homework for little Billy here. And so instead of saying, I can't believe that I'm the only one that's taking responsibility for the homework for the kids, and instead of that complaint where he's like, feels like he's pressed against the wall, you turn it and you say, what I would really love and what I really need is I would need you at 7 o'clock every night to be the one that does the math homework with Billy. Can you do that? Wow, whole different experience for your husband, right? It went from a negative, emotionally charged, criticism to a positive interaction where you're just simply stating that you need his help. Proverbs 21:9 is the verse that came to mind for this. Better to live on a corner of the roof than share a house with a quarrelsome wife. So there you go, some thoughts for you. Oh, one more bonus tip. I don't really have a verse to go with this particular one, but be direct, ladies, in stating what you want instead of hinting and expecting your husband to pick up on your hints, because 9 times out of 10, he won't pick up on your hints because he's not a woman.